Hello, this is Monica Smith from Reignite Democracy Australia, and you would have noticed that I don't do very many interviews lately. However, I could not pass up the opportunity to have this interview with this man who I can't wait to introduce you to.
Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Out of this property. Immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. Out. Out.
You're required to be in court on those both on March 24th.
That will be my 325th ticket. Whoa, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I don't care what you have to say. Out.
There was a famous saying in Poland when I was growing up by the police: give me a man and we will find something on that man. So it was like a flashback when those police officers showed up at my church. Everything kind of came back to life from my childhood. And the only thing I could do is to fend off the wolves as a shepherd. And I used my voice to get rid of them. They were illegally encroaching on our rights during the most holy days, during the Passover celebration. How dare they? The audacity of those people coming. It was a shocking thing. I was a little bit shaken, but I did what every shepherd right now on the planet Earth should be doing: fend off the wolves. We as lions should never bow before the hyenas, and that's what they are right now.
If you think my story of 22 days in solitary confinement was interesting, well, you haven't heard anything. What this man has gone through is probably, I would say for sure, is the worst treatment that any freedom lover in the world has been given from authorities. We're talking judge gangster mobsters. We're talking being put in metal cages in prison, being put in psych wards, being psychologically messed with. He was in prison for over 50 days. He has countless trials he has to appear at. He has hundreds of tickets. And this man, guess what? He is a pastor. He is a pastor and he feeds the poor. And he has been arrested and charged for holding church services and for feeding the poor. You really couldn't make these things up. But I'll tell you what, this man is now more powerful and more inspired than ever before because of these stories. So you're going to want to hear this. Here's his story. I'm really excited today to speak to Artur from Canada. Now, I don't want to introduce you because I want you to let the Australian audience know who you are and basically why, you've got international attention at the moment. So can you please introduce yourself?
Well, I'm a pastor, I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I am a Polish immigrant that grew up behind the Iron Curtain under the boots of the Soviets and emigrated to Canada for freedom.
And how's that freedom going?
Interesting. Put it this way. I think the Canadian government has given me free adventure. I mean, almost every day I wake up, it's another free roller coaster adventure. I used to love roller coaster when I was younger. Not so much anymore. However, I take what God gives. So it's very interesting. This is my 16th arrest, over 100 court cases, and so far about 340 citations.
My goodness, kind of not records that you want to be breaking, I'm sure. But you first came onto the scene for me, probably a year and a half ago when police came into your church. And you were, oh gosh, you really gave it to them, Artur. You really, I can't believe you Nazis, and you get out of my church. And that's when I first saw you. Since that time, please just give us a rundown of what you have dealt with when it comes to Canadian police and the law.
Yeah, that's the thing. People have seen what I'm doing since that Easter viral movie video that was watched over 1 billion times. I was told that this was the #1 played video on earth during that Easter weekend.
Please get out. Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Okay. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property. Immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. Out. Out! 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 Out of this property! Immediately out! Immediately go out and don't come back. I don't want to talk to you. Not a word. Out of this property. Immediately out. I don't care what you have to say. Out! Out! Out of this property, you Nazis! Out! Out! Gestapo is not allowed here. Immediately, Gestapo is not allowed. Out! Do you understand English? Get out of this property. Go. So go. Go. And don't come back without a warrant. Out, Nazi. Out. Out. You understand? Nazis are not welcome here. Out. And don't come back without a warrant. Do not come back without a warrant. You understand that? You're not welcome here. Nazis are not welcome here. Gestapo is not welcome here. Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths. Unbelievable, sick, evil people. Intimidating people in a church during the Passover. You Gestapo, Nazi, communists, fascists. Don't you dare coming back here.
So, however, for me, the adventure, in quotes, started in 2005 when the Canadian government declared that feeding homeless is now illegal, congregating in the parks is illegal, reading the Bible in parks illegal, giving Bibles away illegal, having signs that are not approved by the mayor, like Jesus is King, illegal as well. So that's where the adventure started for me. 11 arrests, about 100 court cases, about 300 tickets at that time from 2005 to 2015. I won those trials and they left me alone for a while until the COVID invisible enemy showed up. And in March of 2020, I started to be attacked viciously by the municipal, provincial, and the federal governments. I was told that our soup kitchen has to be shut down because we are in the middle of this crisis. And I said, this doesn't make any sense. If you're shutting down shelters, if you're shutting down soup kitchens, what do you think those 15 to 20,000 homeless people are going to do? I mean, I know what they're going to do because I would do probably the same thing. We would start, they will start breaking into houses, into garages, into, grocery stores. I mean, they need to eat. If you're not providing them those necessities, they're going to get it this way or that way. The government didn't care. Majority of them didn't even reply to me, including the Premier Jason Kenney and his cabinet. So anyway, I kept feeding people. They kept showing up. I kept receiving tickets. I became the first Canadian to get a ticket called the COVID ticket with 12 cups. And then they harassed me every single time. So my ordeal with the COVID, the invisible enemy, the tyrant of today, started in March of 2020. Until the end of the year, I was constantly, on a regular basis, harassed and ticketed. I think the culmination of this attack was 2020 Christmas celebration, because as you remember, Halloween was perfectly okay and safe, but then the politicians came on, went on television and they said, now, we have to shut down Christmas because the whole neighborhood is going to be dead, cities will collapse, and you're not allowed to see your parents for Christmas dinner. If we will catch your brother having a coffee with you in your home, well, that said, I'll arrest you and throw you in prison. We will be sending police monitoring the parking lots, and I just lost it. I went on television too, and I said, oh, you bloody devils, you can't cancel God, you can't cancel Christmas, I'm canceling you. And I invited the whole city to come to the biggest Christmas celebration in the country, and lots of people showed up.
Canadian pastor Artur Pawlowski was arrested last weekend for allegedly holding a church service that violated new public health orders pertaining to gatherings, according to CBN News. Pawlowski and his brother David were accused of organizing and attending an in-person gathering earlier that day, Calgary police said in a statement. Artur Pawlowski and David Pawlowski have both been arrested and charged with organizing an illegal in-person gathering, including requesting, inciting, or inviting others to attend an illegal public gathering, promoting and attending an illegal public gathering.
I had also some other visitors. Over 100 police officers showed up, 52 police cars, anti-terrorists, SWAT team, chief of police, and I end up with 15 COVID tickets.
Police say they served the Pawlowskis a new court order prior to last Saturday's church service, but the brothers were detained because they chose to ignore the requirements. The arrests come after Alberta Health Services received a directive to stop various gatherings and rallies that defy public health orders across the province. Pawlowski is a longtime street preacher and the pastor of Cave of Adullam congregation in Calgary. He gained international attention when police showed up at his church on Easter weekend checking for compliance with local COVID guidelines.
Well, apparently, according to them, I did the unthinkable. I did the most dangerous thing ever on earth while I had Christmas carolers. And at that time, caroling was prohibited by law. I mean, if you did it, the whole city would collapse. So I had a caroling team of choir singing. And I also did another thing that was extremely dangerous. I served the homeless people AAA steaks, because right now, I don't know if you know, but we are to eat bugs and crickets, not steaks. Steaks are actually highly dangerous.
Welcome back to the Lackluster channel. Today's video features Artur Pawlowski, pastor of the Cave of Adullam Church in Calgary. Despite the lockdowns in Canada, Artur has always kept the church open and organizes soup kitchens to feed the homeless with his congregation.
We've got cheese, we've got cookies.
Over the past year, he's become a target and has received hundreds of tickets for his altruism, even though soup kitchens are exempt.
You're required to be in court on those both on March 24th.
That will be my 325th ticket. I have faced over 100 court cases, over 10 arrests. Whoa, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, for operating a soup kitchen. For operating soup kitchen. Do you know that soup kitchens are exempt?
And I fed those homeless people with those steaks, and I gave them gifts, and that was unacceptable for our government. So I ended up with 15 COVID tickets. So that was 2020. Then they started to show up to our church building. First, they blocked the driveway. Then they used telescopic cameras, taking pictures of our women and children. And then April of 2021, they invaded our place of worship, which is illegal for them to do. Section 176 of the Criminal Code of Canada prohibits people to do what they did.
On April 3rd, 2021, the church was celebrating Shabbat. When I spoke with Artur, he made the importance of the day very clear, telling me it's the most important and holy day of the year. On that day, an environmental health employee, officers of the Calgary Bylaw Services, and police officers showed up to the church about an hour prior to the church services. Artur has told me that there is usually a church or family member at the door that denies officers entry when they show up, and when they do, he will go outside to speak with them. But this time, they entered without permission or warrant, and Artur began recording as soon as he could.
Human rights, international human rights, Constitution of Canada, Charter of Rights and Freedoms, Bill of Rights, everything those people have broken, but they entered the building. So the only thing I knew how to do, I'm a Polish immigrant, I just told them, get out, Nazis. Like, who do you think you are? Get out. And it took me a while to kick them out. Eventually they go, but they come back with a vengeance. They found, as I call them now, the three crooked amigos, three judges of Alberta. And the first one is David Gates. David Gates of Alberta, I don't know if he's related to Bill Gates of America, but David Gates of Alberta gave them the power to enter our church anytime they want with whomever they wish to enter. So they showed up with a SWAT team, can you believe it, into a sanctuary, into a church, a peaceful assembly. I kicked them again. They showed up again. I kicked them again. So they went to another judge, this crooked judge. His name is John Rook. He is Associate Chief Justice, so the boss of judges. And they got another document from this fella. It's like mafia movies, like Cosa Nostra of Alberta. So this judge give them the power to arrest anyone that would dare not to obey the health orders, and they showed up again with a SWAT team. It's very interesting that those two crooked judges, John Rook and David Gates, they did all of those proceedings off the record. So the cameras were off, the recording devices were off, no one was allowed to record anything, and they did it ex parte, without our knowledge, without our participation. Lawyers were not invited. No one knew that they're doing it. It was secret, just like in Soviet Russia, North Korea, and China. So anyway, they came back with the document. I was already preaching at the pulpit. They opened the door, it was packed. They left. They waited for the people to go home. And while we were driving home, we were arrested in the middle of the Highway 4. Inciting people to come to church, officiating in illegal gathering, participating in illegal gathering, not wearing a muzzle. Spent 3 days, 2 nights on concrete. On Monday, we saw the third crooked amigo. This guy's name is Adam Germain. Adam Germain started the proceedings by saying, hey, my good friend, my boss, John Rook, called me and asked if I would be kind enough to do him a favor and oversee those cases. I turned to my brother David and I said, that's it. This is like a mafia movie. This is a Cosa Nostra movie. We don't stand a chance. I mean, he's not going to go against his friend. He's not going to go against his boss. This is just simply a show trial. We don't stand a chance. That's why I decided to go to United States to share my story, because I said, look what's happening in Canada. Now Canada is no longer Canada, it's China, and we're truly living behind the Iron Curtain once again. So I was supposed to be there for a few weeks. I spent 4 months in United States. Coming back, I was immediately arrested by government agents, the gangsters, I call them, in uniform. They were waiting for me. At the moment I stepped out of the plane, boom, I was handcuffed, arrested, taken to prison. Then I was rearrested again, charged criminally for inciting people to come to church. Then I was rearrested again in the middle of the highway, again in the middle of the snow, for participating in a peaceful protest. And then the truck convoy came, as you remember, and that was absolutely unbelievable. This was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen in Canada. Every color, every creed, young, children, men, women, coming together under the umbrella of the Canadian flag was absolutely beautiful. I was asked to conduct church services for the truckers, which I gladly did. We fed them off. They went to Ottawa, and I went to Milk River and Coutts. Coutts, it's a point of entry in Montana and Alberta. And I did a series of church services over there. Lord's Supper, worship, preaching. Was about 50 cruisers. RCMP is like American FBI. So they were there monitoring, taking pictures and recording everything I was saying. Not a big deal. I am constantly being recorded by authorities. I wouldn't be surprised if they're listening to this right now, which I don't really care. Everything I say, it's public. I preach the same way from the pulpit. So anyway, I did church services, Lord's Supper, worship. They recorded me. I finished Milk River, and then I went to the RCMP and I said, I want to go to Coutts. And they said, okay. They opened the barricade for me. They did it. And they led me to Coutts where I did another church service. And during that church service, when we had a Lord's Supper, worship, preaching, we had a supper together afterwards, I gave 19 minutes speech, 19 minutes sermon, reminding Canadians to stand up, to hold the line. I reminded them about history, that I'm a Polish immigrant, and I saw with my own eyes a solidarity movement. When people came together, it was over for the villains. When we stay united, it's over for the wannabe tyrants, for those wannabe pharaohs. But we have to unite. What they were doing for the past 2.5 years, they were isolating, separating, hurting. They are predators, and we have to understand that they hunt like predators. They want us to fight among each other so they can separate us and finish us off. That's why it's so important. And I always say to people, don't like me, I don't care. This is not a popularity contest, but stand united for my freedom, because if my freedom goes, your freedom goes as well. And if our freedom goes, what kind of a nation are we going to give to our children? You see, we are making those decisions right now. What kind of inheritance we're going to pass on to our children and their children? So anyway, a few days later, I attended another rally, another protest. We had about 20,000 people showing up. And then Tuesday morning, I stepped out of my house. And what I didn't know at that time, they were parked for a week, monitoring me coming in and going out, the Canadian FBI. And then when I came out Tuesday morning, it was absolute gong show. It looked like, literally, that it looked like Al Capone was being taken down, you know, Escobar of Alberta, or you know, El Chapo of Canada. There was RCMP officers, detectives, undercover cops, uniformed Calgary police, cruisers everywhere. They even brought anti-terrorists with their cameras recording the arrest. It was insane. And again, remember, I am a pastor, no criminal record. I'm not a violent person. I've never been charged with assault. I feed thousands of people on the streets of Calgary. I pastor people. That's what I do. Yes, I have a big mouth. I roar, but it's non-violent way. So anyway, I was charged with terrorism. I'm the first and the only Canadian citizen so far to be charged with interfering with the crucial infrastructure under the Defense Act. So it's like blowing up bridges, blowing up pipes. I'm charged criminally. I was interrogated for hours, taken to prison, stripped, searched, and if you have been in prison, you know how that feels. Naked, placed in solitary confinement. The next day, they put me in iron cages. I don't know if you had the privilege of being placed in iron cages. There are little cages like for dogs, and they would keep me there for hours, a bigger cage, smaller cage. And then every day I would spend a day and a night for 24, 25, 26 hours and non-stop in solitary confinement. For 3 weeks, they denied my access to my lawyers. My documents were confiscated. My Bibles were taken away from me. They were messing with me back and forth. During that time, 5 different inmates came and they testified already that the guards were giving them incentives to murder me in prison, to beat me up. Then 40 some days later, and I'm in solitary confinement, it's hell on earth. It's really bad what they're doing. And every night I'm being taken from my cell, from my bed, to a concrete cell, solitary, no washroom, no water, every night, just for fun. So then sheriffs come, they kidnapped me. Literally, I was kidnapped from jail by sheriffs, taken hundreds of miles away to another city without the knowledge of my family, my wife, without the knowledge of our lawyers, and placed, and listen to this, into a max spot. Max spot is a place for the most bloody, dangerous offenders, people that murdered other inmates, attacked stuff. I mean, if you're dangerous, that's where you go. I was there by myself. I was considered the most dangerous inmate in the facility, and they would not even give me a pen because they said I'm too dangerous to have a pen. The next day, if that was not crazy, they took me from that solitary hell and they placed me in a psych ward. Believe it or not, I was placed with the crazy people in a psych ward without the evaluation of the doctors, without the knowledge of the AHS, and they put me with a schizophrenic into a cell. The guy, the young fella, was so messed up that he saw things all the time, and he murdered his own brother with a machete, and they put me there. So I think their purpose was they wanted to hurt me by the use of the hands of the inmates. In Calgary, it didn't work, so they took me to this crazy place, hoping that someone will jump me and hurt me. But I'm a pastor, and I do what I do. I started praying with people. I started preaching the Bible. I started to have church services. And soon I converted my entire unit into a church sessions. And then in psych ward, I started to minister to those people, praying with them. Every morning they would come to me, Pastor, would you bless me? And then I would have Bible studies. So 50 days I spent in prison. On the 51st day, I guess for fun, they stripped me naked again. We're looking for contraband, of course, solitary confinement again. And then I was released on strict conditions I'm still on a house arrest. I had to give up lots of money as a bail to sureties. Adam Germain, one of those three crooked amigos, he found me guilty at that time on 2 contempts of court, which is like 4 years of imprisonment. He penalized us with prison term, over $50,000 in penalties, 18 months probation officer, community hours, and province arrest. We were not allowed to leave the province of Alberta. And then he did something that was unbelievable. It has never been done in this country. He gave me, my brother David and Chris Scott, a compelled speech. Every single time this judge ordered us that we speak to the public, to another human being, we must recite CNN, CBC, COVID line. Every time I talk to another person, I have to recite what the government thinks about the vaccines, the muzzles. You know, it was unbelievable. So we went in front of the court and we said, Judge, we will never listen to you. We will never obey this order. If you want to arrest us, but we will not comply. We filed an appeal, and that's what I want to talk to you about, because we filed an appeal, and the appeal was heard a month ago, and 2 weeks ago, 3 judges has found us not guilty. A total 100% victory. They said the arrests were illegal. The sentencing and all the stipulations to, you know, the punishment, if you will, the compelled speech, the community hours, the house arrest, and the over $1,000, everything was done illegally. The invasion of those officers, gangsters, I call them, into our church, illegal, arrests, everything illegal, and we were 100% vindicated. So my brother David is free. Chris Scott is free. However, because I was charged with terrorism for my church service in Quds, I am still on house arrest. As we are talking right now, I cannot leave my house after 7 p.m. I had to give up lots of money for a bail to our sureties, and I'm not allowed, like I said, to leave my house. The trial is scheduled for February of 2023. And in the meantime, I'm facing 3 other trials. One is a $100,000 ticket for feeding homeless during the pandemic. Another one is for trespassing, disturbing peace, and not wearing a muzzle when I went to pick up my mail from Canada Post. Another one, inciting people to come to church or some nonsense like this. So it's very fascinating, actually, because this victory from 2 weeks ago, it went like a wild fire, like an avalanche. And since then, other people started to win their cases, and behold, one of the trials, one of the charges, they had to withdraw those charges and vindicate me if it comes to one of the arrests. So the fight continues, but their house of cards is falling apart. The foundation that those 3 crooked amigos is being broken, and I believe it will go like an avalanche. So the message is very simple to the villains: be careful, because now we're coming after you. But there is also a message to people like you and me: persevere, stand strong. In the end, truth wins. Where is Adolf Hitler today? Where is the Nazi party today? Where is the KGB today? Where are those villains of old? If we stand together, if we stay together united, sooner or later, the tables will turn and we will go after them. Another fascinating twist in the story is this: that because I have become a little bit like a symbol of freedom, a pastor, they call me Canada's pastor, and I am, all over the place. I constantly speak and challenge the totalitarian regime, expose their corruption, because you got to remember, the politicians broke the same mandates and regulations that like we did. They partied, and they were caught breaking the mandates, and yet, of course, they were never charged, never arrested. They're not facing anything. One law for us, a totally different law for them. So what I decided to do by being contacted literally by tens of thousands of people asking me to run for political office. So what I decided to do, fine, if they will not let me be just a pastor, I will become a pastor politician. And if they were chasing me yesterday, I'll start chasing them tomorrow. So I'm running for a leadership of a party. I'll make my public announcement on Saturday, and then the election for the province of Alberta is next May, and we'll see what happens. And I'm telling you, I'm already looking for the biggest drain that I can find in Canada, and I will be plunging this thing. The swamp needs to be clean. We need to drain the swamp, and the swamp is huge, but hey, I'm willing to do it. I know how the story ends. I know that God wins in the end, and everyone that stands on his side will win as well.
Wow. Okay. So my charges were dropped about 2.5 weeks ago as well, and so were other people's in Australia, very similar to yours. So it's a very strange thing. I think things definitely are sort of changing in a way, and those other people that were arrested with you and let go of charges as well, I mean, are they going to start, getting some compensation or suing the police back for everything? I'm sure they are, right?
Well, the problem in the Canadian system, which is, it's called justice system, but has very little to do with justice. It's just a system, very corrupted, crooked system. It's very difficult to sue them unless you have some enormous power. So I don't know what is going to happen. I mean, what they did to me is like straight from the Hollywood movie. I mean, metal cages, inciting others to murder me there, and solitary confinement, being dragged to a concrete cells. I mean, even the guards were coming to me and they said, we got no idea why they're doing this to you, because the directives were coming from the administration. It was not the guards. Yeah, there's some bad guards. I would say 30% are good, 30% don't care. They're just doing their job, and 30% are psychopaths. But there's some good people there. There are good people everywhere, and there are evil people everywhere. But everything that was done to me was coming from the directors, from the higher ups, and they were receiving their directives from the politicians. Why? Remember, I told you about those politicians that broke the same rules. Well, I exposed that. And one of those crooked men was the minister, Taylor Shandro. He was the minister of health in the province of Alberta. He was the one that ordered the police to arrest us. And for being a good Nazi, he was rewarded with the highest position in the land by the premier of Alberta, Jason Kenney, that was himself caught multiple times of breaking the same rules and regulations and mandates. So Taylor Shandro now is the Minister of, in quote, Justice and Solicitor General. So this man is responsible for persecuting or prosecuting me and others like me. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. The level of hypocrisy, and he was caught with Premier partying, not keeping social distancing, not wearing a muzzle, during the time where all the events were shut down and churches were shut down. They partied together with whiskey. I mean, they're the kings, they're the pharaohs, and we are just simply their slaves. So that man, Taylor Shandro, is the one that is forwarding this persecution that is still upon me. I embarrassed the Canadian government. I exposed the corruption of Canadian government, and everything right now has nothing to do with justice. Don't kid yourself. This is pure vengeance. It's personal, and they are for the blood. However, you don't see me depressed. You don't see me suicidal. You see, I'm not drinking vodka. I'm drinking water, and I'm doing good. And I'm actually, in a weird way, I started to enjoy the ride, even though I'm getting older and the roller coaster is not as appealing as it used to be. Well, I like speed. Well, bring it on. And if everything you're doing to me is elevating me to a position that will enable me to run for office, maybe that's what God wants me to do. Maybe he was looking for a man that can actually find this drain, this plunger, and start fixing our broken system, because the broken system is at every level. Educational, of course, mainstream media are nothing more than a propaganda machinery. They're not going to tell the public what's really going on. They're spinning, they're cooks. I don't call them reporters anymore. They're cooks, they're cooking stuff up. And I want to tell you, if you're watching this, do not eat what they're serving. They're terrible cooks. They will poison you. You're going to have salmonella if you're going to eat or drink what they're serving. We have to go to the people like this channel and others. So we have Rebel News. I know you have Rebel News in Australia as well. You got to go to the alternative sources, because the mainstream liars are just that. They're professional, pathological liars. They're not going to tell you really what's going on. So in in few words, I'm telling you, I'm getting very excited in a weird way. Hey, if you will not leave me to do what I really love to do, being a pastor and feed the poor, well, fine. I'm going to start chasing you. I'll become a politician and I'll fix the broken system.
People like you need to have that sort of attitude, or else God wouldn't have put you in this position. And to be honest, it's actually a huge compliment that you have so much attention from such powerful people, because it means that you're doing something correct. And the last thing I want to say about all of this is I find it quite ironic that the reason they've targeted you is to try and silence you, and it did the complete opposite. It's like they haven't profiled you properly. It's like they don't actually know what kind of person you are, because the harder they push you, the harder you're going to push back. So they would have been better off leaving you alone. Actually, if they were trying to silence you, they would have been better off ignoring you. So I find it really ironic, and I can't wait to see what you do in May next year. We'll obviously be watching. Now, people watching this might think, well, it's amazing that he finds it interesting what he's going through and stuff like that. But wow, he's obviously very courageous and stuff like that. So if there was, one thing you could say to the people to explain or to encourage them to maybe find just a sliver of the strength that you have somehow gotten from God, how can they find strength in their own lives by looking at what you're doing?
Well, it's actually quite simple. I've read the Bible, believe it or not, and I did it a number of times. And I found it fascinating that every single time we read a story of the heroes from the past, it was something that they did. And I remember reading about Esther and her famous line, "If I perish, I perish." And I remember her cousin Mordecai that refused to bow before wicked Haman. And he says, perhaps for such a time as this, God placed you in this position. And then I read about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and off they go because they refuse to bow before the golden muzzle, now I call it, and they go to the fire, and God deals with their enemies in the fire. In the fire, they were thrown bound, but Jesus shows up to set them free. In the fire, they have enormous testimony, and in the fire is their promotion. When I read about Daniel, when God shut off the mouths of the lions and he came out with such a powerful story that to this day we teach our children about the power. Look at David and the giant. You see, giant was just a mountain, and behind that mountain was David's destiny. Hey, people, do you want destiny that God has for you? Well, read the Bible and look what those people did. It cost them everything. They stood through the test, they went through the fire, and they came victoriously on the other side. And because they did, they were elevated to a position that God wanted them to have. In other words, if you want your destiny to be fulfilled, you got to go through some difficulties. And David, what a powerful story. He looks at the mountain, he looks at the giant, and he says, who do you think you are? You uncircumcised Philistine, that you should defy the armies of the living God. I said the same thing. Our prime minister, who do you think you are? Jason Kenney or Chandra or Fauci or Gates or Schwab or all those psychopathic, wicked, evil people that will face my God one day, and they will be judged for everything they said and everything they did to us. Who do you think you are? I don't know what kind of a devil you have in Australia, but who those people think they are? I mean, it's up to us. If we would come together, rise up, it would be over for those people just like that. You see, they don't have enough guns. They don't have enough machine guns. They don't have enough gangsters in uniform to stop the will of the people. I saw that in 1980 when Polish people finally had enough of communism. They took it to the streets and they grew into 1 million strong. So the government got scared and they outlawed solidarity movement. You know what happened? The moment the government outlawed solidarity, it grew from 1 million to 3 million. Few years later, we had 10 million strong, and in 1989, Poland had its first democratic election after the occupation of Germans and then later Soviets. And Berlin Wall collapsed, and the Iron Curtain got broken. Why it got broken? Because people came together. So please forget about 10,000 different things that you can find for disunity. I don't like her. I don't like him. Like, look, you have more hair than me. I actually lose more and more. I have less and less. I could be jealous of you and say, I don't like you because you got more hair than me. Enough of nonsense. Let's unite. We are humans created by the same God. I don't care if you're white, red, blue, green. If Martians would come, I'll still feed them and I'll still tell them that Jesus loves them. So the point is this: enough of division. Do not play their game. Unite, unite, unite. When they tell you don't come together, you come in a bigger numbers. When they say to you, cannot have a coffee with your brother, invite your sister as well. When they say no more gatherings, you give them the biggest gathering or biggest pride of lion that this earth have ever seen. And look at me, I'm a living, walking example. The government, municipal, provincial, and federal, they did their best, everything they could to stop me. But people like us are unstoppable. Why? Because our God is unstoppable. It's not about us. So don't look at your own, weaknesses. I'm a weak man, and people say, oh, you're so strong, you're so amazing. No, I'm not. And if you don't believe me, I give you my wife's number. She will tell you that Artur Pawlowski is not a perfect man. Far from it. This is not about me. This is not about us. This is about God. God loves people. When we stand on the side of humanity, when we stand on the side of a common man, the little guy, the underdog, if you will, when we stand on the side of God's creation, I'm telling you, God will show up. And when he shows up, he's not weak like me. He has a big spanking hand, and those people will get what's due to them. So rejoice, in other words, because we are about to win the biggest victory ever, but we have to unite. There is no other way. Divided we fall, united we stand. If you want to win this fight, you got to keep uniting no matter what. The little parties come together. The little groups unite under the biggest umbrella. That's why I created solidaritymovementofcanada.com. Solidaritymovementofcanada.com. You can create your own Australia one or global. It doesn't matter. Find an umbrella and then march under that umbrella. That's what they're afraid of. You see, hyenas, because that's what they are, the predators, they hunt in a pack, and they can tackle a lion, they can tackle a lioness. However, the moment another lion shows up, it's over for the hyenas. Now imagine the pride, the biggest pride of lions ever. We would be eating hyenas for breakfast and for lunch and for dinner and as snacks. I mean, look at me. I'm eating them every single day. I need some help.
Oh my gosh. Well, amen. Amen. You could not have finished this any better. So I'm not going to ask any more questions. thank you so much for your time, and just keep fighting the fight, and I'll keep sharing your content, and good luck in May next year. And we are uniting every single day. More and more people are uniting. So the dream will come alive, and I agree, good always prevails. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. God bless.
God bless you.